I'm the vice president of the Green Sanctuary Committee here in Community Church. And we have invited and hosted a group called 5G Wake Up Call. You can find it, it's their URL, and you can find it on your computers at home. They have a lot of information about the coming rise of radiation that we keep living in all the time. And we have very good, knowledgeable speakers, and they will introduce themselves. Jill or Sam? You want to introduce your group?
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rena, and thank you for the use of the Green Sanctuary meeting space here at Community Church. Tonight we're doing 2 different talks about 5G and how to protect yourself and your home. 5G, as you know, is the new cell phone technology, possibly smartphone technology, smart grid technology, and it has risks and dangers to health that have been kind of suppressed, but more and more studies are showing that they can have harmful biological effects on our bodily processes and thus animals, plants, all of life. So tonight we have 2 speakers. One is Marla Peck, who comes from Huntington, Long Island, and is part of the group 5G Citizens Awareness. They've been very active out there. She might tell you a bit about it. They've, I think, fought to keep a cell tower off a church in a local community that would have blasted them all out. And Marla's going to show us a bit of Generation Zapped, which was an important film. Some of you may have seen a bit, and I think you can see it online if you want to, about 5G and the health questions. Then we're going to have a building biologist, Terry, discuss ways you can cover a pad and protect your home, your electrical outlets, your emitting routers and cell phones and so forth. So first, Marla Peck from Huntington.
And Kathy and I are members of a group called Citizens for 5G Awareness. I want to show you maybe 5 minutes of a very important film, Generation Zapped. It's an introduction to the situation that we have today. And it's very, very well done and very entertaining. And I would like to suggest, which is what our group does, we go to our local library, and actually we went to all the libraries, most of them on Long Island, and we asked them if they would show the film. And they all agreed to. And that's one way that you and every person here, everybody here, can bring this situation of what we're being exposed to people's awareness, because the majority of people have no clue what 5G is. And there are people out there who not only do they not have any knowledge of 5G, but when you speak to them about it, they don't seem to care. And as you know, the great majority of people are addicted to their cell phones. Do you agree with me?
Yes.
You have to agree with that.
Yeah, it's true.
It's unbelievable to me.
They actually designed them to be addictive, the cell phones. They're designed to be that way.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. I love that. Okay. Yes, they purposely designed cell phones to make them addictive. Now, while we're waiting for our sound man, I'll tell you a little bit about me. I am a mom and a grandmother. How did I get involved with this whole situation with 5G? Because I'm a grandmother. I have 3 little grandchildren, 6, 5 and a half, and 4 from 2 of my children. And about 5 years ago, I went to the New York Open Center. Does anybody know the New York Open Center? Yes. Okay, it's in Manhattan. It is a holistic learning center. This is about 5 years ago, and they had a symposium on wireless devices. And I didn't know really much about it at the time, but it sounded interesting to me. And they had some very well-known people on a panel. And one of the gentlemen on the panel was a very well-known cardiologist. And his name is escaping me.
Dr. Sinatra.
What?
Dr. Sinatra.
Yes, thank you. Dr. Steven Sinatra? Yes. And he told a story about his son. His son worked on Wall Street, and his son was getting sicker and sicker. And nobody could figure out. Now, keep in mind, he's a famous cardiologist, so he took his son to all of the best medical doctors in New York and everywhere. Nobody could figure out why his son was getting sicker and sicker, to the point where he had to quit his job on Wall Street, and he didn't know what was going to happen to him. Somehow they figured out that he had something called EHS, which I'll talk a little about, which is electro-hypersensitivity disorder. And they think that about 25% of the population may have this disorder and may not even recognize it. But there are people that have it so severe, which means when they are in an environment with a lot of wireless devices, they literally will get deathly ill. And they have headaches and anxiety, and they can't function, they can't do their jobs. And you'll see in this film, we're only going to watch a little bit of it, it goes into a family where the husband had this EHS. And they literally had to go into different neighborhoods when they were looking for a house to find a neighborhood where he could thrive and not be sick. And that's a real problem for these people. And I even know personally people that told me that they had to live in their car. They had to leave their homes and go like into the woods practically and live. Well-known people, by the way. So anyway, as I was talking about me, so I went to the symposium 5 years ago, and there were some, as I said, very high-profile people on it, and I went home that night, and of course, my grandson at that time was about 1 year old, and I tried to have an intelligent conversation with my daughter about the dangers of cell phones, because my daughter's cell phone is a part of her anatomy. She doesn't go anywhere without it. If she can't find her cell phone, she panics. She walks around with it morning, noon, and night, and she didn't think that what I had to say was that important. When I explained to her that cell phone radiation is very dangerous, especially to babies and children, although we're all affected by it. So that was, like I said, that was about 5 years ago. And then about a year and a half ago, a friend of mine who is the leader of our group, Citizens for 5G Awareness, Debbie, woke up one morning. Now, I'm assuming you live in apartment buildings? Okay. Well, we live in homes, and on her property, when she woke up that morning, on her property, she found a telephone pole installed in the back of her home by the road, which was never there before. Can you imagine a telephone pole that was never there before? And on the top of the telephone pole was an antenna. She knew nothing about this. She called up our town and tried to find out what this was all about. And they basically told her there was nothing to worry about. So she made an appointment to visit our Huntington Town supervisor, Chad Lupinacci, who happened to be a friend of my son. And I said, Debbie, I'm going to go with you to the meeting. And Chrissy, Debbie, and I went, and that was really the start of our group, Citizens for 5G Awareness. Now we have 8 members. We started to research what is this thing on the telephone pole? What is it? And we found out that it was what they call a small cell antenna. But as I said, I think it's a very good idea to look into this film. I believe you can watch it on YouTube.
Wireless technology and devices have forever changed how we communicate with family and close friends. In the U.S., the wireless industry is responsible for 3.8 million jobs and generates over $146.2 billion annually. In the United States alone, there are over 200 million cell phones in use. Globally, this figure stands at 4.77 billion and is expected to reach 6.1 billion by 2020.
Prior to 1984, wireless technology was only used in the military. And in 1984 was the first move to take wireless technology into the consumer environment. Cell phones, at the time, they were excluded from any pre-market testing. So they came onto the market without any safety testing at all.
When we evolved on the planet, there was no microwave radiation other than this infinitesimal amount. And what we have added today is a billion times more microwave radiation. Our bodies didn't evolve with it, and we have no protection against it. So it's invisible, but it's a very real environmental pollutant.
EMF, or electromagnetic fields, are invisible forms of energy, often referred to as radiation. They are associated with the use of electrical power and various technologies, including wireless devices.
We are electrical in nature. We are made of the same stuff as everything else. We are made of atoms, and atoms are made of electrons, which are negatively charged, protons that are positively charged, and we react to electromagnetic fields. So it's not surprising that we respond to all kinds of things.
So there's various kinds of radiation. One of the distinctions that's made is between ionizing radiation and non-ionizing radiation. That distinction reflects the energy that the radiation delivers and whether it breaks up molecules as it passes through tissues.
The electromagnetic spectrum measures different levels of radiation. Non-ionizing radiation emits lower energy, while ionizing radiation emits higher energy. The higher the energy, the more dangerous it becomes for our health. Most people are able to tolerate lower energy fields, such as AM/FM radio, for example. Wireless technology emits non-ionizing radiation known as radio frequencies. Regulatory agencies consider these emissions safe for short periods of time, but increased exposure could have dangerous biological effects. The light from the sun causes sunburn or skin cancer in some. Overexposure to X-rays and cosmic rays are dangerous.
Where there's scientific uncertainty and a need for research is how non-ionizing radiation might cause some of the diseases that are of concern, some of the diseases we've seen epidemiologically. So yes, we know that there's a potential to heat, and then there are questions about whether there are other potential mechanisms.
As a society, we are very fond of things that make life easier or more enjoyable. Anything that provides release from the stress of everyday life. But history has shown our enjoyment or dependence on these things can blind us to their adverse effects and influence us to ignore obvious warning signs.
To date, scientists have not found any substance as contained in smoke that is known to be responsible for human disease.
What cigarette do you smoke, Doctor?
Smoking was a major factor.
Could where you carry your cell phone make you sick? Some doctors say they're seeing evidence of cancer that could be linked to mobile phones.
It's convenient, say many young women.
It's probably the most convenient place to put it, especially when you go out. You know, you put your money on one breast and your phone in the other. If I'm wearing a dress ever, I usually just slip it like in the straps or down in the center.
I used to carry my cell phone in my bra whenever I'd use a Bluetooth headset because the connection was poor. Otherwise, if it was anything further away, it just wouldn't work well. I don't have a family history of cancer.
Now, this woman, it was determined that she had breast cancer from the cell phone that she used to put in her bra. And it's interesting because the doctor who examined her really had no understanding that this could happen. But when he saw it, he was convinced that the cell phone radiation into the skin was causing her the breast cancer because it was exactly where she would have the phone. And as she said, there was no family history at all. So I'm going to start a little bit here. I wrote a article for Creations magazine. I don't know if anybody ever heard of Creations magazine. You can subscribe to it. The editors leave the magazines at health food stores and libraries and supermarkets, and you could pick them up for free. I'm wondering if maybe Whole Foods in the city may have them. It's a fabulous, fabulous little magazine. Very, very good articles. And here's an article by one of the other young ladies in our group, by Faye Samus. She wrote an article on long-term wireless exposure at school. And if we have the time, I'd like to get into that a little bit. And here's an article in Creations magazine by Deborah Davis. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Deborah Davis, but she is wonderful. And she wrote a book, more than one. She wrote a book on cancer also, unrelated to this. When she wrote that book, it was quite many years ago, I read that. This is her book, Disconnect. The Truth About Cell Phone Radiation, What the Industry is Doing to Hide It, and How to Protect Your Family. This is Deborah Davis. And she wrote the article in Creations. And also another member of our group, our founding member, Debbie, who found the telephone pole on her property, wrote an article in Creations. 5G is NG. 5G is no good. So you could take a look at these articles later. This is from Steve Shore, who puts on the Real Truth About Health conference. It's going to be on Long Island at the Huntington Hilton. It's a 10-day free health conference, and Deborah Davis is one of the speakers, and another very famous, world-renowned speaker on wireless radiation. I think he wrote the book Radiation Nation. And I have the brochures up here. The Huntington Hilton is in Melville. It's only about maybe a 5-minute ride from the Farmingdale train station. And it's an incredible event. It goes on from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. for 7 days world-renowned people speak. Incredible. And also, on Long Island, we have an organization called Healthy Planet, and I have here some information on they're doing a turkey-free Thanksgiving this coming Sunday. And what you do is you bring a dish, and a vegan dish. And I have to tell you, it is fabulous. So if anybody wants to take the train, it's also in Farmingdale, near the Farmingdale train station. So I'm going to bring this with me. Kathy, are you going to come to this? What? You don't know yet? Oh, it is so amazing. And they're going to have a speaker, climate change, on a Monmouth University law professor on climate change. Okay. Well, I wrote an article for Creations magazine that is going to be published in next month's issue. And I told the publisher, Neil, who I love because of the work he does, it's such amazing work putting together this remarkable magazine, that if he doesn't want to publish it, I won't kill myself. Okay? But I just had to write something, and he told me he was going to publish the article. So what I say in the article is that we are facing a planetary emergency. It has been called a threat to mankind that has never been known before. A silent Holocaust, a crime against humanity, a health calamity waiting to happen, an invisible threat, a tampering with God, a fifth extinction event, an assault against the planetary web of life.
Yes. Yes.
An unmitigated health and privacy catastrophe. No animal, bird, insect, planet, tree, or human, including fetuses, will be able to avoid exposure. What is it? It's 5G. Now, this young lady, did you say you weren't familiar with 5G? Someone said they weren't familiar with it. What, dear? I'm not. Good. So I want you to listen to what I have to say, and hopefully you will understand that this is a health crisis. And I'd like your opinion at the end. I would. Because like I said, I've spoken to people who don't believe that this is going to be harmful to us. And you know what I tell those people? That I do respect their opinion, but I don't agree. Now, why are scientists all over the world sounding the alarm? 5G is fifth generation wireless technology. The first generation wireless telephone technology used radio waves to transmit voice calls from base stations to individual mobile devices. So the first generation was only for voice. And I don't know if anybody had the first cell phones. They were big clunky things. Okay, the second generation wireless telephone technology introduced mobile data services beginning with text messaging. And it's funny because, believe it or not, I have a cell phone. I try not to use it unless it's absolutely necessary. And when I had to get a new phone, because my daughter kept telling me my old phone was like a dinosaur, I told them I just wanted the basic stuff. I don't want a phone that's going to do a lot of stuff. And they said to me, well, you'll get text messages. And you know what I said? It was included. I said, I'll never text. And the funny thing is, I would tell people, don't text me because you're not going to get a text back. But unfortunately, there are people out there that will only text you. You know that? So I had to start looking at texts, which I do now and then, and I'll text back now and then. Okay. The third generation wireless telephone technology was capable of sending and receiving data, video calling, and mobile internet. And that was a big jump. That was a big shift. And then the fourth generation of wireless technology supported multiple frequency bands for various service providers across the countries and regions. And the data rate increased significantly. But there were what they call bandwidth limitations. So what did they do? They had to find another frequency, which is the frequency that we know now as 5G. And it has a very big bandwidth. Okay. The fifth generation frequency spectrum, which is 5G, can be divided into three major bands, such as sub-6 gigahertz range, mid-range, and high-range millimeter waves. And this provides even a higher data rate with advanced network technology. But again, to do this, we have to use much higher frequency. And the millimeter waves were actually first used by our military to inflict pain and for crowd control. And that is documented. And there's another film, but we don't want to scare anybody. So we don't show the film, but if you want to watch this film, it is on YouTube. And it's called 5G Apocalypse, the Extinction Event. And, you know, when we would have our meetings, we have 2 meetings a month, my group. One is our core group, where it's just the 8 of us, and we try to put our heads together and say, well, what can we do to wake people up? And the other group is we have a meeting every, in Creations Magazine, they tell us when the meetings are. It's actually, we're gonna have a meeting this Wednesday. What, dear? Okay, thank you. Every third Wednesday of the month, we have a meeting at the Huntington Hilton. And at that meeting, everybody can come to that meeting, and we have people coming from all over Long Island. And again, the purpose of the meeting is to discuss what is really being done to us and our loved ones in our community, and to see what can be done to stop it. And that's at the Huntington Hilton. If anybody wants to take a train out this Wednesday evening, I will give you my cell number, and I'll pick you up at the train station in Farmingdale, if you're interested. Actually, I hope I have business cards with me, because I actually own a business, which has nothing to do with this. And I'll give you my card and my office numbers on there. The best place to reach me is always in my office, because as I said, I don't like to use a cell phone. So if you could call me in the office and say, you know, Marla, we're gonna come out, we'd love to come to your meeting. That would be wonderful. Because the more people we can get, the more people we can wake up, and the more people we feel will do something about this. And I have a lot of information, but I want to show you this. This is from a group in England. They turned 5G on in certain areas of England very early. Did you know that? Okay. All right. And here we have, I guess this is supposed to be our DNA. And there's a baby here. And it says here, unconstitutional. Now that is a big one. Unconstitutional. We are being irradiated where we live, where we work, without our approval or consent. Isn't that a big one? I think that's, right? Now with Debbie, where they put her, the telephone pole with the small cell on top, was, as far as she was concerned, or most people would be concerned, was on her property. But guess what? They will tell you, that's not your property. That's the right of way. Did anybody know this? I didn't even know this. If you have a home, I think it's 3 feet, I believe, 3 to 5 feet from the street, that is not your property. That is wherever you live's property. And they'll put a lamppost there and sometimes a fire hydrant or something. And that's where they put the telephone pole, on the street, the side street where she lives. And that's considered the right of way. So basically, she had no choice in where they were going to put this thing. And one of the things we've been doing in talking to our town board, which we do all the time when they have their town board meetings, is we want these antennas out of Huntington. That's our town. We'd like to see them out all over the place. But since we've been making that request, which is to remove the antennas that have been already installed and to put a moratorium on the ones that have been that they want to install, they've already put over 200 of these things on people's property. So that just keeps going and going and going. Okay, and what's happening is, which I'll get to in the talk, because of the Telecommunication Act of 1996, which was signed by our President Bill Clinton, it took away any jurisdiction from the state or the municipalities. So basically, the telecom companies can contract out to companies to install these cell antennas wherever they see fit. Do you believe that? Isn't that unbelievable? That they took the jurisdiction away from the state. And there are several villages right now on Long Island that have prohibited this, and they are being sued. They're being sued by the contractor that's being employed by Verizon. Can you imagine? And guess what? They're losing. They're losing because of the Telecommunication Act of 1996. So we have to change that, of course. That's one of the things we're going to do. We're going to talk about that. Okay, so unconstitutional. 5G is unconstitutional, biologically dangerous, blanket radiation, 24/7 exposure. These are from the group in England. No place to hide. Wireless radiation damages DNA. 5G is mandatory irradiation of the public without prior study and assurance of safety. Wireless RF is a Class 2B carcinogen. The World Health Organization has defined wireless radiation as a Class 2B carcinogen in the same category as lead and asbestos. This is the World Health Organization. The public has not been consulted for 24/7 exposure to 5G from small cell tower antennas on neighborhood light poles, telephone poles. Oh, they're putting this on mailboxes. And we know that this is a real threat to our very lives. Now, I don't live in Manhattan, although I wish I had a place in Manhattan. So I don't know where, outside of the buildings, I see them on top of buildings. I don't know where they're putting these.
On the streets. On the streets.
Okay, they actually have what? They light posts on the street?
My building, there's
They're on lampposts.
Okay, so they're putting them on lampposts in the streets.
Yes.
Lovely. Okay, well, we need to talk about that again, because we have action points here, which we'll get to. And, my whole belief is that if enough people rise up and say no, then we can make a difference. But if people are complacent, and sadly, most people are very busy. They have very busy lives. They are overworked. They have a lot of responsibilities. And again, I believe that was orchestrated too, that people really don't have the time to become active in this mission. And the mission is to stop 5G. We do not want to be irradiated in our homes, in our apartment buildings. We don't want to get sick. And there's clear evidence of what this radiation will do to us. Clear evidence. When does it start? Well, they're claiming that they turned on 5G in Manhattan. When did they say it turned on?
It's not really 5G, it's really an advanced 4G. 5G hasn't been, the official frequency for 5G hasn't legally been set yet. So they're marketing it as 5G, but it's really an advanced 4G.
Okay, but
T-Mobile started announcing it in the past 6 months, but again, we're not at the scary 5G, we're at advanced 4G.
Okay, but I'm going to say this, Edie. Theoretically, according to according to the media, 5G has been turned on in New York, according to the media. And I know when I turn on my computer, there's a big blast there about Verizon and 5G, and they're doing it right, and all the stadiums in New York City now have 5G. So regardless if it's close to 5G or not, this is a terrible thing happening to us. Now, I did want to read a little bit to you because I thought this is very good. This was an article published in Creations magazine, 5G, a toxic assault on the planetary web of life. And he quotes some very famous people, and Dr. Martin Pall is in this film. And this is Dr. Martin Pall. He says the 5G rollout is absolutely insane. Now, here's somebody that worked for the World Health Organizations. She says the plans to beam highly penetrative 5G milliwave radiation at us from space, I was going to get into that, must surely be one of the greatest follies ever conceived of by mankind. There will be no safe place to live. 5G is 100 times more potent than 4G and will likely result in an increase in cancer, heart disease, depression, other diseases. But he talks about something that I wasn't aware of, which I thought was very interesting and I wanted to bring to your attention. It's called the Schumann resonance. And the Schumann's resonance is what the Earth vibrates at. The Earth has a vibration. And he's saying that the Schumann resonance would be potentially disrupted by the 20,000 5G satellites put into orbit. And that's what they're doing right now. And that's going to be very destructive of our Earth. And that's why some people are calling this a fifth extinction event. Tom Wheeler was the FCC commissioner. He was the one that made the announcement about 5G. And if you Google his talk, his speech, he was maniacal. He really was. And he was going, I don't care about health. I don't care about anything. We're going to win this because we want to be the first in the world, like a race, to implement 5G, and we have to beat China, and this is going to connect what he called the Internet of Things. Now, why is that so important? Because the Internet of Things It's about machines. It's connecting machines. So you can have a smart refrigerator, a smart TV, a smart coffee maker, smart diapers. I mean, this is not a joke. And people are going to run now, and they're all going to want to have 5G cell phones, new phones, because they want to be able to connect to all these machines. And the other thing that it's going to do is going to give us driverless cars, and it's going to give us a lot more robots. I saw a video on humanoid robots, which they took down, and these robots can do everything you and I can do. They can run, they can climb stairs, they can do jobs. Should we be frightened? Yes, we should be frightened. Should we do something about it? Yes, we have to do something about it, because otherwise we're going to be part of the biggest experiment ever. We're guinea pigs in a big experiment, and that's what our group and your group in the city is trying to do, make you aware of what is being foisted on us without our consent, and to do something about it.
Wonderful. We have another speaker. Sorry.
Okay. I only had another 2 hours to go. Okay, but thank you.
Well, that was good and very informative. I don't know how many of you knew all of that, but as the more you know, the more appalling this whole situation becomes. So now we'd like to introduce our second speaker, who's Terry, who's a building biologist and has drilled down into some of the nitty-gritty of ways we can actually protect ourselves. So, Terry?
So in 2011, I read an article by Dr. Mercola talking about the problems of wireless radiation. And probably in 2011, we were probably at 2G or 3G. Maybe at that time we could text on our phones. And for some reason, I really got interested in the topic of wireless radiation, and I started to learn more and more about it. And I found out that there was someone in New York named Matt who was a building biologist. And building biologists are trained to make our environment safer. And building biology is about lowering the wireless radiation in your home, about using less wireless devices, about lowering dirty electricity. So when we talk about EMFs, it's electrical, it's magnetic. We have two different kinds of fields. So the first thing is to start with 5G. I've been told by Camilla Reese, who is very high up in the EMF education field, the scary 5G isn't here yet. The reason the scary 5G isn't here is because the high 5G frequency that was proposed interferes with the National Weather Service. So when you're hearing about 5G from T-Mobile and Verizon, it's a fancy 4G. I'm not saying it's not bad, it's not harmful. I'm saying we have a little time before we would get freaked out, and of course we have to teach people. So I'm going to shift gears today, and I'm going to talk about ways that we can live with this technology more safely. There are things we've been able to do for many years to live more safely with wireless radiation, and these are things that people need to know. It's not candy. So I had Matt come to my apartment, and he used a variety of meters, and he showed me where my exposures were and how we could make my apartment safer to live in. So the first thing to understand is we have cell phone towers coming in through our windows. So we're going to go over shielding methods later, but to give you a sense of how you can regain control, it doesn't have to be expensive. So the first thing you can do in your home is you want to block the windows because you have the cell phone tower radiation coming in through the windows, and then we have our neighbors' wireless coming in through our walls. So there are a number of things we can do, and we'll talk about that a little later. Another thing building biology teaches is that we have voltage coming out of all our electric cords. So we're going to talk about lowering dirty electricity and how that ties into the new Con Edison smart meters. Okay. So the first thing I want to go over is I compiled a really nice resource list for everyone on this handout. If everyone might want to grab the handout. The first thing says general information. The first web link, manhattanneighbors.org. That's written by Camilla Reese. It's an introduction to wireless technology, and it gives you 50 tips on how to use your devices more safely. It's an excellent introduction to how we can help ourselves. There are other websites. The Deborah Davis website is EHT, Environmental Health Trust. There's great educational information. It's very empowering on all these websites under general information. The second category says medical effects of wireless radiation. It references the Bioinitiative report edited by David Carpenter from the University of Albany. These are the Bioinitiative report is what you can show your doctors who think there's no biological harm from wireless. There is. So again, there are 2 sites under medical effects. The third category says home and office remediation. And the first link is to buildingbiologyinstitute.org. The building biologists have done something really great. They've put a lot of the stuff they teach us in free videos. So if you're interested in shielding your home or understanding about dirty electricity or how to get rid of, more wireless in your house, under home and office remediation, we have Building Biology Institute, and then it tells you how to get there. Create Healthy Homes is Orem Miller's website. Orem is one of my teachers, and Orem is very, very smart and very technical. So if you go to Create Healthy Homes, you can read all about all the things we're talking about in much more scientific depth. If you turn the page over, I have a category on blue light. Blue light is the spectrum of light that comes through our monitors and through our cell phones. It's actually, according to Dr. Mercola, damaging to our eyes and will cause a lot of macular degeneration down the line. While it's not 5G, it's important that we know that blue light is a bad thing. We're going to talk about that a little bit. Now, a lot of people say, oh, I have this pendant on my cell phone. Oh, I wear this necklace, or I use this crystal. All those things are great, but in building biology, we go for what can we meter, because with the meter, we can show you what's really going on. I believe in crystals. I believe in all these things. So under the vibrational protection, I wear the Rejuvenizer by Phyllis Light. I've been told by people that I work with, for me, that this protects me from Wi-Fi outside. I have no idea if it works, but I wear the Rejuvenizer. Shungite is a mineral that is found in Russia. People wear shungite, people drink shungite water. You can look into all these things, but there are ways we can protect ourselves if we get into the metaphysical aspects. But again, for the sake of our talk, we're going to deal with what we see on our meters because that's concrete. Under 5G education, I don't know if you all know about the 5G summit that was on the web. The 5G summit is just incredible, and the 5G summit is involved in starting some really heavy lawsuits coming up. So I'm not familiar with this.
This is from the 5G.
Oh, that's great. I didn't get it. Okay. I got a different subscription. But anyway, the 5G summit is really great, and they are involved with a lot of SciRG and a lot of Green Med Info and Dr. Mercola. They're all coming together to work on a national lawsuit. So while we want to do grassroots stuff here, there's going to be a much more powerful group of high-level people, and from what I've heard, they're working with a very, very good lawyer, and they're trying to figure out their legal strategy. So I think that's why it's being delayed. At the bottom of the handout, I have my email. If you have any questions, please email me, and I'll do my best to answer. Okay. If you have a pen, there are 2 more resources I want to give you, please. If you do want to have a building biologist come to your home, there's someone named Matt Waletsky, and his website is Healthy Dwellings. And Healthy Dwellings. Matt Waletsky, and his phone number is 347-871-6860. So that's Matt, Healthy Dwellings, 347-871-6860. So Matt does this full time, so of course he has a fee for coming to your home. I think it maybe was around $250. It could be more, it could be less. I don't know what he's charging. I would really urge anyone who lives opposite a cell tower to please have Matt come up. Because if you anyone that lives opposite a cell tower, they're getting focused wireless radiation into their home. And it can really be mitigated if you have no budget with just aluminum foil. So there are different strategies. If you want to start learning how to remediate yourself, again, you can go to the building biology website on the handout, and please look at the educational videos. If that piques your interest and you want to try to do it on your own, there are 2 stores that sell all the supplies that we use. One of them is called Less EMF. They're in Albany, New York, and all the guys there are happy to talk to you. Less EMF. So Less EMF is in Albany. They sell all the things we're talking about. And there's another company in Toronto called Safe Living Technology. And through these companies, if you want, you can start painting your walls or buying material or getting bed canopies. So I want to go into now how we use our devices more safely. A lot of us are worried about 5G, but we're using wireless devices. You know, and if you're using your cell phone as your main phone, that's the first thing to try to stop. So the first thing you might want to do is pay attention to how am I using my phone? Am I watching movies? Am I searching the web? Am I shopping on Amazon? So the first thing you want to do is, if you can, get a landline. So you can still have a cell phone. You can still use it when you're out of the house. But when you're home, use a landline. You can just add it onto your internet package. A landline, like 1995. A phone, a regular phone. Cordless phones are wireless, so please don't get a cordless phone at home.
I have a question.
Sure.
DVD player.
I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
Portable DVD player, what category is that in?
I have no idea. Anything portable is probably wireless or Bluetooth. So we want to go back to 1990. We want everything with a cord. And I'll answer questions at the end. Okay. So the first thing to do to try to help ourselves, this is all scary, but let's start with how do we live? Do we rely on our cell phone? Do we wear earbuds? Do we have an iWatch? Are we using smart technology with our new TV? You don't have to do any of this. We all had all these things in the 1990s. So this is free. It doesn't cost anything to start using your technology more safely. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about how to use your cell phone more safely. I handed out my brochure. This brochure, if everyone opens it up, on one of the pages, it says everyday strategies to minimize wireless radiation. So that's a list that's basically telling you how to use your wireless more safely. So we're going to go through that quickly. First thing is, don't put the cell phone next to your head. The problem with putting the cell phone next to your head is that it creates heating of the tissue in your brain, and that's a bad thing. So either use your cell phone on speakerphone or try to use a headset that is an air tube headset. Okay. Air tube headset, right? And we see all the younger people running around with little white earbuds. Those are Bluetooth. Bluetooth is bad. Nothing wireless, either talking to the speakerphone or use air tube headsets. The second thing is, down here, I took a little reading. We have very poor cell phone reception down here, and that's actually good. We don't have much exposure. But if anyone's trying to use their phone down here, because there's no reception, your phone is working harder. So if you go down here and you're trying to use your cell phone and you have 2 bars, you don't want to use your cell phone. If there's bad reception, the phone is going to put out more radiation. So only use your phone outside when there's good reception or 5 bars. Okay? Texting is better than talking on the phone. If you must communicate, texting emits less radiation. Try to go home. Anything you want to search, you want to buy on Amazon, go home and go on your computer. Don't do it on your phone. Just like we don't want to put the phone next to our head when we talk, you don't want to carry the phone on your body, in your bra, in your pants pocket. There's already evidence that men have 10% lower sperm count from carrying the phone in their pockets. So if you need to carry a phone and keep it on, put it in a bag, put it in a backpack. What no one really understands is that the apps and notifications on your cell phone mean that the phone is always pinging and making connections. So you really want to go into your phone and get rid of any apps you don't need. Turn off location tracking, turn off notifications. Make your phone as dumb as it could be, because even if you're not using your phone, it's very active, updating and software updates. So just really pare it down. You have to go into the preferences on your phone and just turn off notifications and that kind of thing. Another thing we don't realize is that if we're using our phone while it's charging and we're texting while the phone is charging, we're actually getting some electrical current into our bodies through our fingertips. So if you're using a tablet or a laptop or your phone and it's charging, wait till the device charges up and use it on battery power, because whenever the phone or tablet is connected to electricity, you're getting electrical currents. Can I? Well, the car is a battery, so I think it's less of a problem. Yeah, because it's a DC, I think. Another thing is, so many of us, not me, but a lot of people, sleep with their laptops and their phones next to their head. Okay, so you don't want to do that. Again, what's happening is these devices are pinging, and when we sleep, our bodies are regenerating. So if you're sleeping and the thing's doing this silently, it's causing cellular stress, which isn't helping us sleep. The wireless technology also does affect our melatonin levels and our circadian rhythms. So anyone with insomnia issues should really pay attention and disconnect their devices before sleep. Okay. Briefly, how do we use our devices more safely at home? Again, we want to go back to 1995. We had computers, but they had a cord that connected us. So when we go home, you probably don't need a wireless computer at home. If you have a desk and you have your computer, you can get an Ethernet cord, and then you can turn off your Wi-Fi on the computer. That cuts one level of radiation in your home. If you do connect your computer by Ethernet cable, you would then go into your computer system preferences and disable Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. Okay? If you have a device that is Wi-Fi or Bluetooth enabled and you're not using it, the device is still emitting Wi-Fi and Bluetooth unless you turn it off. Okay, the second thing you want to do in your home is hardwire everything. Hardwire your computer, as we discussed, and connect your TV by Ethernet. I have a 50-foot Ethernet cord at home. It runs from my modem into my smart TV. You can have a great TV and you can watch Netflix and you can do it with an Ethernet cord. It doesn't have to be with Wi-Fi. So little by little, start looking around your life and saying, do I need this? I can have TV with an Ethernet cord. And when you start to do all this, you have to make sure that your modem given to you by Spectrum or RCN or whoever gives you your internet at home, you want to make sure that your modem doesn't have a wireless antenna. So everyone probably under the age of 35 wants everything wireless. They want all the wire, they just can't get enough wireless. They don't understand it's radiation. So if you are paring down the wireless in your house, call Spectrum or RCN or whoever you work with and say, is my modem a wireless router? Does it have an antenna? Sometimes they can switch it off for you just over the phone. They can do it on there, and God bless you. Or you may have to take your modem and trade it in. So I recently went to Spectrum and I asked for a non-router modem. My modem doesn't have any wireless in it.
I have Verizon. You can actually log into the router and switch it off.
Okay, I didn't know that. Yeah. Her Verizon router lets her log in and turn off the antenna, which is great to know. The other thing is, with all our electrical devices, we want to use a 3-prong cord so the electronic is grounded. Okay, again, cleaning up wireless sources in your house. If you get a new printer, it comes with Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. So when you buy a printer, get a printer that has an Ethernet cord and make sure that you can disable the printer. My mom got a new printer and it's hooked up by Ethernet, but I turned off the wireless button. So you just have to pay attention because anything new comes with Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. You also want to go back to using a corded keyboard and a corded mouse. We don't need Bluetooth. So again, 1995, our keyboard, our mouse, everything was hardwired. So you want to go do that as well. Okay, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about home shielding. We talked about how the cell phone towers come into our homes through the windows, and our neighbors' smart devices and our neighbors' routers. If you have a neighbor under 35, it's all going to be coming through the walls. So the first thing to know is that, again, we can shield all this out. I was talking with Jill and Edie about this. The home shielding can be expensive. It probably would start at $300 or $400 if you want to paint your walls. If you really want to go the whole way, it can be $2,000 or $3,000. The first thing I recommend, if anyone wants to do one thing, if you can, is to get a bed canopy. A bed canopy is actually like an African bug net, and it blocks out about 95% of the wireless around you. So that would help you have better sleep. So I want to show you how that works. So this is a wireless radiation meter. So you hear this sound? Okay, that is probably a wireless meter. So, so this is the kind of material that you can put over your windows, or that you can, that the bed canopy is made out of. So watch when I cover this. This is the material. See how it blocked the signal? So this is what you can put over your windows or around your bed when we take this off. Okay, so now I'm going.
What is that material? What is it?
It's called Naturel. It's made out of particulate metal. I mean, it looks like it's really no big deal. It's not unattractive, and it blocks everything. So
the commercial name is Naturel?
Yeah, if you go to Less EMF or Safe Living Technologies, they sell a couple of different versions. Now, I want to show you what happens. I made my cell phone live, and I'm going to call my house. Wait, where am I? Okay. So I want you to hear what happens when we make a phone call. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover this with the shielding material and show you now. I'm going to make a phone call again. See how it's not as loud? I mean, it's not perfectly shielded. Okay, so that's my show and tell. So,
you cover the phone though?
you know, I'm just trying to be efficient with the time. I don't know. Yes, if I covered the phone, it would block the signal. But what I'm trying to show you is that there are ways, if you're able to start shielding your home. So you can put material like this over your window, you can sleep under a bed canopy, and you can also get paint. And the paint on the walls would block out your neighbors. This over your windows would block out the Wi-Fi. And there's also a film, a shielding film, and that will probably be most efficient against 5G. The problem with this is that it's porous, and 5G will get through porous material. But if you use a window film, that will be better against 5G. Now, if
this paint, tell us about it's special paint, right?
It's special paint. It's particulate metal. So when you look at this, it looks like fabric, but it has particulate silver and copper in it, in thin strands. If you buy the paint, which is called Y-Shield, it has, particulate silver and copper in it. The Y-Shield is black, so you have to do 2 coats of paint if you put it on. So if you're going to use Y-Shield to block out your neighbors, you will have to do two top coats. But again, it doesn't make sense to block your neighbors, God bless you, unless you're also going to shield your windows. So, you know, it's tough to have to pay for this, and it's not ideal. So there are cheaper ways to do this. You can get a Mylar space blanket, like we keep, you know, those space blankets you take camping. They're like silver and Mylar. Those will work, and you can also use tinfoil. It's not pretty, but if you have a neighbor who you know is using a lot of wireless devices, again, it's not pretty, but you can get aluminum foil or you can get mylar, and you can cover your wall, and then you can put a curtain over it. Yes? Well, the ceiling, I personally haven't shielded my ceilings because I want some thorough drafting for whatever Wi-Fi is going through, but if you live in a modern building, wireless is cut 50% by every floor of concrete. So my neighbor underneath, her Wi-Fi would only be coming up at 50% strength. But, you know, again, every place is different. Every apartment needs to be checked.
You mentioned something about the kind of fabric that you can use against 5G. No, not that. You said the
5G. Oh, window film. Window film, because 5G is going to have a faster frequency. This is porous, so 5G won't be blocked by the material, but it most likely will be blocked by window film, which is a solid layer of plastic. Marla, did you have a question?
Yeah, what about the buildings where they have the antennas on top of the building?
Well, that's a different subject. So if someone has cell phone towers right above their heads, they're not going to get radiation. The wireless radiation is projected from the tower. So again, if someone lives opposite a cell tower, they really, you know, they could, again, no one wants to put aluminum foil over their window. You know, there can be workarounds.
Yeah, so there's a church.
But the problem, I just want to finish, the problem with the cell phone towers above your head are the electrical fields. It's not radiation, it's the electrical fields that may be coming from all the electricity above. You want to block the source, so metal would block it. The logic is that you want to block any antenna with metal, aluminum foil, this material. I mean, in buildings, they can use metal mesh. I mean, there's a lot of building materials. There are multiple ways to do it. We talked about the materials. So again, if you want to shield your space, you would want to just stop using the devices. Go to Ethernet for your computer, go to Ethernet for your TV, make sure your modem does not have any wireless coming through, and then you can use a corded landline. You can go through all your new devices and turn off any wireless and Bluetooth preferences. So the bed canopy can be washed 40 times. It's good that long. It basically would look something like this. Yeah, it's like a bug net. If you do live above the first floor, you would have to put a sheet underneath the bed as well. In New York City, depending on where you live, you might have to do all three. But again, if someone doesn't have the budget to do all this, there are workarounds using aluminum foil and mylar sheeting. And again, it's not ideal, but there are workable solutions. So I'm happy to email with anyone if they have questions. I know it's a lot of information, and again, there's a ton of information on the handout under Building Biology Institute with the free videos. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about the Con Ed smart meters, which we're all upset about. I emailed with Orem Miller, who is one of the main teachers of building biology, and Orem said that the problem with the smart meters is your proximity to the meter. So if you live next door to it, it's more of a problem than if you live on the 5th floor and the meter's in the basement. So a lot of the problems with all these wireless things is how close are you to the source. If you work in an office and the wireless router is above your head, that's not the best thing, but if your office is 200 feet from the router down the hall, it's less of a problem. You want to be further from all these things if possible. So it's not so much, I mean, the radiation from the smart meters is a problem, but if your apartment is a good distance away, it's less of a problem. But what is a problem is the electricity that comes through the wires, which is called dirty electricity. So dirty electricity is two things. It's the electrical voltage that comes through our electric cords, and it's also the magnetic fields. You know when your refrigerator turns on and you hear the motor on the refrigerator start? That's the magnetic field. So magnetic fields, the only way you can work with them is to just get further away. Most magnetic fields, like the back of your refrigerator or a coffee grinder, the magnetic fields fall off in 2 to 3 feet. So in my apartment, many years ago, I put my home office on the wall in back of my kitchen, because I have a standard apartment. I walk into my apartment and my little kitchen's around the corner, and I built my little desk and my computer right on the other side of the refrigerator. So for many years, I was sitting at my desk getting magnetic fields, which is actually a bad thing. So now when I work at my computer, I go into my kitchen and I turn off my refrigerator while I work, and then when I'm done at my computer, I turn the refrigerator back on. I don't think most people have their offices next to the refrigerator like me, but I'm bringing this up because a lot of us have things going on in our spaces that we're not aware of. So how I turn my refrigerator off is I have, this is called an on-off switch. I plug this into the switch by my refrigerator. The refrigerator electric cord goes here. So I literally just do that, and that turns off my refrigerator.
Did you say you plug it into the wall?
Yeah, this plugs into the wall, and this is just like a light switch, but it's right at the electrical sockets. I was talking to Marla about this. She has a lamp next to her bed, and we were talking about electrical fields. So when Marla goes to sleep, she said, what should I do to turn off the electrical fields near my bed? Well, what I suggested is she plugs this into the wall, and the lamp cord goes in here. And when she goes to sleep, that would just shut the electrical fields down. What I'm trying to point out is that we don't want to have a lot of electric cords near our bodies. So, at the office, we have the computer, we have the printer, we have a lamp, we have all kinds of electrical cords. So, as best you can at home, wherever you are by your bed, try to get the electric cords further away from your body. That's all. I don't have to get complicated. The electric cord is live. As soon as you turn on your lamp, the voltage is right there. So, it's nothing to be concerned about unless you sit at a desk with a lot of electrical devices. Then you want to just push them away. We have a lot of electrical devices with these little black transformer boxes. These transmit magnetic fields. And just like the refrigerator motor, the magnetic field drop off in 2 or 3 feet. So all I'm trying to say is all these electrical cords, get them as far away from your body at your desk and when you sleep. Okay, so that's dirty electricity. I'm just about done. Just a few more small things, please.
But if there's like a power line in the wall, because I have a situation, it's not always on, but it goes up to 200.
Well, in New York City, the electrical wiring between our walls is in a metal tubing. So generally, we shouldn't have any electrical fields coming from the walls, because the New York City building code is that the electrical wires have to be encased in metal, which is shielding them. That's why the main problem with electrical fields is from our devices. You'd have to have Matt come look at it.
Context, the electrical versus the 5G in terms of the effect?
Well, all I know from what I spoke about with Orem is that the smart meters, it's proximity. How close are you? The main problem with, what Orem said, which again underscores why I wanted to talk about this today. Orem said people really need to worry about how they're using wireless devices in their own lives and how they're using all their electronics, and everyone should be more aware of this than worrying about the smart meters. Not that the smart meters aren't another layer of a problem. Les?
Yeah. What's called a Stetzer filter for dirty electricity?
Building biologists, for some reason, don't like Stetzer filters. The building biologist, Larry Gust, is an electrical engineer, and he's the president of building biology, and for whatever reason, they don't recommend the Stetzers. I don't know why.
It could be because within 1 foot, it does emit a field.
Oh, okay.
But if you're beyond a foot, it's fine. So.
Yeah, I don't know. We're just told not to use the Stetzers for some reason. Edie?
Terry, you said that the true millimeter waves aren't being used yet. I was wondering if you had a time frame when you thought that might happen.
Well,
I heard that there's going to be another activation.
When I don't know things, I have 3 people I check with. Larry Gust, who's an electrical engineer. He runs a building biology institute. Orem Miller, who his website is Create Healthy Homes. Orem is also on the faculty of building biology, and I talked to Camilla Reese, who is the Manhattan Neighbors for Safer Technology, ManhattanNeighbors.org. Camilla does a lot of lobbying and working with policymakers in Washington, and Camilla said that the frequency for the scary 5G hasn't been negotiated yet because it's interfering with the weather forecast radars. So according to Camilla Reese, she said the true 5G isn't here, it's just a booted up 4G, it's a stronger 4G. I did see this like really silly news story on CNN.com a few months ago with a girl in the East Village, and she was saying 5G is in the East Village and I can get 5G here and I can't get 5G here, but I think she didn't know that it's not real 5G. She was doing her news story. But I don't know, Edie, I don't know when. The one thing that we can say with certainty is they're putting up more and more and more antennas. And on 2nd Avenue, just in the past year, they put wireless antennas on all the traffic lights going down 2nd Avenue. So, it's unfortunately really sad and horrible, and that's why I'm giving this lecture, to let everyone know there are these small things. It's not what we want to do. None of us wants to go on a diet. I love to eat ice cream every day, but I can't. I hate all of it too. I'm just trying to give everyone little tips about what you can do. So I work with some naturopathic doctors. I'm not a doctor. I can't give medical advice. There's my disclaimer. My naturopathic doctor asks me to take a bath once a week in a pound of sea salt and a pound of baking soda. That's not Epsom salt. So Dr. Linda, who is a doctor here in New York and Santa Fe, her radiation bath is 1 pound of baking soda, 1 pound of kosher sea salt in a hot bath once a week. That is a homeopathic treatment to lower radiation. So Dr. Linda, who's super smart, that's what she advises us to do as a radiation bath. Do I need to stop? Yes, but I'm not a medical, that's just sharing what Dr. Linda says. If anyone's sensitive to LEDs, don't use LEDs. These are blue light glasses. The blue light, and she has one, blue light is good. And also, last thing guys, we're advising people not to use EMF shielding clothing. A lot of places sell clothing that they say blocks Wi-Fi, but again we say please don't use it because you can actually trap it. You have a turtleneck, it can still get underneath. So, Marla, if anyone has any questions, thank you, everyone.
Excellent, by the way.
Oh,
Excellent talk.
thank you.
I
Thank
learned
you.
so much. But I do want to say one thing which I think is very important. To implement the 5G technology, they had to put small cell antennas all over because they're going to blanket the country with literally millions of these things, because the wavelength, the 5G wavelength, doesn't travel far. Because the higher the frequency, the shorter the wavelength. So what does that mean? That means they had to put in a whole new infrastructure. What is the infrastructure again? Millions of small cell antennas. Now you have them in New York, regardless if it is emitting 4G or 5G. The point is that now you have, I don't know how many of these things in New York City, which you did not have before. Before that, we only had cell towers. Now we have cell antennas, small antennas, and they are, as you said, they're in lampposts now. So you are getting much, much more radiation than you were ever exposed to, regardless of it's 4G or 5G, because of just the sheer number of these small cells.
I just wanted to say something about other countries. Apparently the US has the highest permissible levels of wireless radiation in the world. Like say what the government allows for wireless output would be here. Russia, interestingly, Russia's down here and so is China. So for some reason the FCC has made it legal that we can be like blown over the top. There is one other thing I wanted to say. we all live in New York or Long Island, but there are pockets where there's very, very little cell phone reception. My mom lives in New Jersey in an independent living place. There is practically no wireless there. There are pockets that you can find, not that we want to leave, but there are places if you do want to leave.
Anyone else?
Les?
I would urge everybody to contact the New York City Council members, the New York State Senator, and Assembly member. Meetings have been held recently with the chair of the New York City Council Environmental Protection Committee.